Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. Before we get going, I wanted to pass on a little whisper regarding a forthcoming book of Meghan's. Now, I understand that these sort of whispers have been doing the rounds for years and nothing comes to fruition, and this might not come to any sort of fruition. This project that I've heard a whisper of might be abandoned, as many of her projects have been. This is what we continually keep seeing. She gets together with teams and crews, there's stresses and strains, they rub up against each other, and there's big fallouts and everything gets dumped. So I'm not going to be surprised if that happens in this circumstance, but I am passing on the whisper from a fairly decent source, but I'm not putting my faith in it. I'm just letting you know the whispers surrounding this particular book. And what I've heard is that the idea was that this book was to be released in tandem with the announcements and the fanfare for her cookery show, Cook in the Books, which would be a fabulous title for the book itself, wouldn't it? And for the show. Cook in the Books. I'm trademarking that one. But she should use it, really, if she wants the attention that she craves. And the idea for this particular book, if the memoir is on the shelf for the moment, is that it would amalgamate food, family life, and all those stresses and strains and the turmoils of her life in a way that, let's say, Nigella Lawson does, but she does it without vulgarity, she does it successfully, and as a great wordsmith. She writes so beautifully, doesn't she, our Nigella? Whereas Meghan's prowess, should we say, has limitations? Has a great deal of limitation, my dear. As hinted previously, when I told you that publishers had been dismayed at her own insistence on her own penmanship for any forthcoming memoir rather than a ghost, which was the preference, as we saw with Moringa for Harry. Because she ends up cooking word salad, you know, which is another possible title for her future tome. But the teams behind Meghan understand that reference to drama is what the public are craving. They still want it. There is still an appetite for drama. That is her USP, and it's always ripe for marketing. So that was the idea behind this book, to not just make it about cookery and the brands that she might be representing in future and do a Martha Stewart, but it was a sort of, admittedly, others in the background trying to convince her to amalgamate in elements of drama, things she can talk about in her life and her struggles, her kids and her family, into the book, you know, cooking up a recipe all together to actually give it a selling point, because of course the fear is that no one's going to take a blind bit of notice about her strawberry jam jars and all of this, you see. But all very hush-hush at the moment, and as I say, might come to nothing. I don't know how much credence there is in this particular whisper, but I'm there to furnish you with it, my dear. And whether it is sooner or later, if you don't think that she isn't going to sell a book at some point in the future, whether it's 1 year down the line, 10 year, or 50 years down the line, that is an utterly lucrative imperative. And, you know, you've got another think coming if you don't think that it will come down the line eventually. The lure of the filthy lucre will be too much, my dear. This is one cookie dough queen who needs to cook the dough. But before we delve into her husband's latest embarrassments, let's have a refreshing dose of real royalty here.
Your Majesty, you look beautiful. Also, Your Majesty, the Queen.
Where there was a riot of activity as the King hosted a Commonwealth reception at St James's Palace.
Listen, we're gonna sing a song for the King. Give me a yeah! Yeah! Give me a yeah, yeah! Yeah!
And in addition to our gracious Queen Camilla, I was delighted to see my Queen, Grace Jones. My Queen is Camilla, of course, you understand, but if there is a very close second, Grace Jones would certainly be it. Isn't she a special artist, a special lady, pure beauty, pure magic, and having recently entered her winter season, she is a sexy and stylish 76, and she lives up to her name. She is full of grace regarding the Commonwealth. She said, being Jamaican, I believe that the Commonwealth has positives. It's a very good thing that brings people together in a positive way. Hear, hear. Some sense from Grace Jones, if only the other people of Jamaica would listen to her, who might have been convinced otherwise by interlopers. The party was thrown ahead of their Majesty's forthcoming visit to Samoa, and the King was encouraged to get jiggy with it and throw a few shapes on the floor, to cut a rug and shake a tail feather. Well, I can't quite imagine the late Elizabeth getting jiggy with it in quite the same manner, can you, my dears? It's the perils of modern royalty. Poor old Charles, that's what he's stuck with, that's his lot. But he managed to get into the spirit, as he always does. You know, we all have our own styles that we prefer. I happen to be rather old school, but that doesn't mean that one can't deny that the parties these days are a little bit more raucous, with a bit more edge, and dare I say it, a bit more fun than during the last tenureship. Yes, I dare say it. Charles and Camilla are giving us an effective transition from the old world into the new, aren't they, my dears? They are coping with it extremely well. And the Princess of Wales was photographed back at work, where she met with 16-year-old Liz Hatton, who is a budding photographer who has a rare and aggressive form of cancer, and she was invited to Windsor Castle as part of her bucket list. The Waleses said that it was a pleasure to meet with Liz at Windsor, a talented young photographer whose creativity and strength has inspired us both. Thank you for sharing your photos and story with us. And Liz was invited to join an investiture ceremony conducted by Prince William because she wanted to take part in as many photography experiences as possible while she was able to. And afterwards Liz said that there was no sort of grandeur about them. There was just humanity and kindness. And her family said, we cannot thank you both enough for the amazing opportunity you gave Liz, or the wonderful day that we have experienced as a family. It's a day none of us will ever forget, and we are so very grateful to you all. You see, after Liz's diagnosis earlier this year, which gave her around 3 years to live, she decided that there was no point in following up with study, so she chucked the idea of A-levels on the bonfire, and her family posted a wish list or a bucket list on X. And although there was no specific wish to work at the palace, Prince William got wind of it and he invited her nevertheless, understanding her passion for photography. And so the investiture ceremony that he undertook included sporting recipients such as Ali McHoist, and she was involved in this ceremony, you see, to photograph proceedings and the environment. So you see, it was an absolute bunty for her and her family, and a memory to cherish. And William was later seen at a football game. Yes, his favourite Aston Villa were playing. He was there with his posh mates, and he was looking pensive for a while and rather nervous, but then elated with joy as his team were victorious. As some of you have said in the comments, some like the beard, some don't. I think it's all right, but I don't actually care for it a great deal now that we've seen quite enough of it, truth be told. And also, one of the reasons I think he might be growing it is because ladies don't realise how tedious it can be shaving a beard, and I realise, my dears, that you understand how tedious it can be shaving the legs or shaving the muff. You know, it's a ball ache, isn't it? It's a ball ache. But try the face every day. Ingrowing hairs and acne and irritation, although I've never really seen that sharp on William, but really is a ball ache. You know, at least you can hide your legs and your muff in the winter. The face is always out, isn't it, on display, so perhaps he just got a bit bored and thought I could spend that 20 minutes doing something else. Incidentally, for the body, if you're wondering, ladies, laser is the way. Laser is the way. It'll zap you, won't get any ingrown hairs growing back, and no stubble. But one fluffy dandelion affair, the Dandini to William's Prince Charming, emerged in Lesotho, didn't he? And it boggles the mind how seriously these two take themselves, really. Because on the Archewell website, the blurb they came out with was laid on so thick. Oh, it was laid on, my dear. Lesotho welcomes Harry home. And it could have been written by Meghan, this thing. You wouldn't believe it. Because Meghan claimed Nigeria as her home, didn't she? Because she's 43%, in case you didn't hear about it. Well, as if that wasn't enough of a stretch. Now we have Prince Harry of Wales, as he was, claiming Lesotho as his home, which is a landlocked nation within southern Africa. They say today marked a significant moment as Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, or Mahal, as he's affectionately known by the Basotho people, commenced his trip to Lesotho, warmly welcomed by the King and Queen in a private meeting. And apparently, Mahal means the warrior. So this is what he's named for. I can't take it seriously. I can understand they do these things. It's a nicety. It's the fact that he has to relay it to the rest of the world and tell us all about his real home and his special name. This occasion not only rekindled cherished connections from his childhood, but also celebrated a remarkable milestone, the 200th anniversary of the nation. The Duke holds a special place in his heart for this nation, particularly through his work with Centre Bali, the organisation he founded alongside Prince Seeiso in 2006. Yada, 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 yada. You get the idea. So another name, another title to join Adamazi, the Grand Queen of Nigeria, Adamazi, and her warrior Mahal. Adamazi and Mahal. It's just too much. I did look over an old YouTube video that's online going back a few years, a good few decent years, to see this relationship between Prince Harry and Prince Seeiso. And this was actually in the run-up to the wedding. I saw this interview. He seems like a nice chap, Prince Seeiso. He does. And it was actually fantastic footage, you know. Harry was evidently, authentically adored by the people of Lesotho. Although, mind you, if you plonk anybody in there, they're always surrounded by hugs and kisses and joy, aren't they? Because they're a very joyous, welcoming people, so it doesn't really matter in that effect. But I do not deny the genuine connection that he has with the people and the country, or the impressive work that he was doing and has done, and from a young age. I don't deny that. But it is the syrup, it is the self-aggrandizing style and the sophistry that we witness, and the romanticising of this relationship, that speaking about his home, you know, Harry welcomed home, one can't help but think that it's an attempt at some sort of dig at Britain, a boring old blighter, you know, welcoming Harry home. Well, it's nauseating, my dear, and you are welcome to take your pick of another home. But we all know that the home you were designated is Frogmore. Ribbit, ribbit. Prince Seeiso calls him his younger brother, which, if you wanted to read into it, is a little bit insulting, somewhat insulting to Prince William, isn't it? Although it's no skin off his nose, he can have it, he can have it. William's washed his hands of his so-called brother, because that's not brotherly love, is it? The way that Harry's behaved. Harry visited the Prime Minister because he is such an official ambassador. He's dandining about on this 4-day trip to the region. And by coincidence, Prince William is actually due to attend Earthshot not far away in Cape Town. In Cape Town on November the 6th. He can't do anything without his little bro, can he? Without Harold muscling in on his patch, behaving like a colonial viceroy. Isn't it? And some sort of white saviour. That's what I say. He'll be telling us he's 68% Zulu next. And knowing the late Diana, anything's possible. Actually, Prince Seiso's father, who was King Moshoeshoe II, was killed in a car crash as well, the year before Diana. So they have that sad history in common. Lesotho is known as the Kingdom of the Sky because of its mountainous terrain and the landscapes. And it's beautiful, but in Harry's case, we're talking pie in the sky. This kingdom and the realms of this kingdom are the domain of King Charles III and will pass to King William V, not King Henry IX. Get it? Got it? Good. So suck it up, Mahal. Suck it up. Warrior indeed. Just because he's pugnacious It does not a warrior make. They have different connotations. Do you understand? But Lesotho, as I say, is a landlocked nation surrounded by South Africa, and it celebrates its Independence Day tomorrow, 200 years since the nation was founded. And if anybody is watching from that part of the world, we send you our warmest felicitations for a marvellous celebration. And it only became the independent nation of Lesotho on October the 4th, 1966. The Kingdom of Lesotho it became, but before that it was Basutoland, a British Crown colony, and that was from 1884 to 1966. The royal family sent their tidings to the Jewish community for Rosh Hashana, Shana Tova, and Prince William visited the Earthshot Prize finalist Enso, and they create tyres that are more sustainable and reduce pollution, as they announced a pioneering new strategic partnership with Uber across the kingdom and the States. And he met with the founder and he learned about the technology behind the tyres, joining discussions and getting stuck in himself fitting a tyre. And congratulations are in order for a President of the United States. Here it is, here it is. Who do you think this is, my dears? Mr. Biden, Mr. Biden, oh Joe, Joseph Robinette, Joe, Josie. Oh, my apologies, my dear. It's Jimmy Carter. It's Jimmy Carter. Whoops. Sorry about that, my dear. The former President Jimmy Carter indeed turned 100 years old, and in all seriousness, I send him all my best. I really do. And I'm sure I'll get one or two comments spring up from people who are offended by what I just said. Well, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself with a dead man's dick. There are a billion channels if you want to go and find one that is joyless and humourless and not irreverent. But I am irreverent, and I speak as I find. And I speak with humour, so this is not the channel for you. So save yourself before you announce and flounce and announce. Okay? Because I don't give a shit. So go fuck yourself with a dead man's dick. And I'm not talking about Mr. Biden. The Princess Royal visited a Gurkha regiment at Imjin Barracks in Innsworth, Gloucestershire, and she received a traditional mala, which is a flower garland from the Nepalese soldiers, and she viewed a bust of herself made from icing sugar. How sweet. And she was also presented with this interesting-looking portrait carved in a watermelon. Who would have thunk of it? And there was a celebration cake that she cut with a very large kukri, which is the national weapon of Nepal. And you don't want to mess with a Gurkha, do you, my dear? You do not want to mess with a Gurkha in this life. You want them on your side, because they will fight to the bitter death to protect. Wonderful, the Gurkhas. And Anne is Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Logistic Corps, and she wore an outfit of green and red. And using Nepal as a little sort of segue into Buddhism, I received a comment from a monk. And from memory, it's the first comment that I've received from a practicing monk. I could be wrong there, but I know I've had many pastors, I've had vicars and reverends, men and women of the cloth, many of them over the years, but I don't recall having a monk. Let me know if there are any more out there. But Thupton Chodak says, "Hi River, I'm so pleased you found out the artist of your recent purchase." So was I, my dear, thank you. Also like the way you have worn and teamed your new necklace from a fruit basketeer monk. Well, I do love that, my dear. Thank you very much for notifying me of your monkey presence here. I'm too naughty to be a monk, my dear. No. I've told you before, I have been on retreat to Buddhist islands and Buddhist retreats, so I'm very au fait with the lifestyle and some of the teachings. And one of my retreats was on Holy Isle, not the one off Lindisfarne or wherever it is, but the one off the Isle of Arran, which is very beautiful. That's run by Buddhists. And I retreated there and had wonderful times and learned wonderful lessons. But I'm too naughty to be a monk. Although I'm sure you have your naughty moments too, my dear, if you're a basketeer. I'm sure you do. But we won't tell anyone, my dear, will we? We won't tell anyone. But a little more seriously here, a message of condolence was sent from the King to the President of Nepal following the recent flooding and landslides. And he said, "My wife and I were heartbroken to see the devastating effects of flooding and landslides in Nepal over the weekend. Many in the United Kingdom have strong, deep and personal ties to Nepal, not least through the Gurkhas and their outstanding contribution to the British Army. Together with the British public, we send our deepest condolences to those who have so tragically lost their loved ones and who continue to be affected. As always, the United Kingdom stands ready to help you support those most in need. As many in Nepal begin to mark important festivals, I particularly hope that families might still be able to come together, even at such an incredibly difficult time. Charles R." And a quick retraction before I sign off. Scott Garver said, "I'm a slave to proper titular observance." You kinky bugger, Scott Garver. You kinky bugger. Their Royal Highnesses Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie are no longer of York. They both ceased to be the moment they became married. They are now Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrice, Mrs. Eduardo Mapoli-Mozzi, and Her Royal Highness Princess Eugenie, Mrs. Jack Brooksbank, respectively. And you are quite right, my dear. And he leaves this message because I referred to Princess Beatrice of York during the pregnancy announcement. And you're quite right to have corrected me. Quite right. Slapped wrist for me. I was actually camping it up, my dear. I was camping it up, as I do. Some take me very literally at my word. And I do try to make clear again and again that I'm not a scholar, I'm not an expert, and I speak very casually and colloquially and camply. But you are quite right. But I must say that I do miss the visibility of the York title, now that the Duke of York is indisposed, should we put it that way, and out to pasture, because it's one of the most beautiful sounding names, I think. Duke of York, Duchess of York, the Rose of York, Beatrice and Eugenie of York. Wonderful, wonderful, one of the most beautiful. But sadly sort of retired now, isn't it? And I shall retire to my chambers. Thank you for joining me. And if you want to keep me pretty in pink, my tip jar is in the description box, or you can furnish the comment section with some juicy thoughts and fruity comments. Thank you, my dears. Ta-ta for now, and toodle pip.